Hello, this is Andrew Wolf. I'm the coordinator for online learning at the University of Rochester School of Nursing. And in this video, I'm going to talk about discussions, boards, blogs, and wikis. And essentially, these are three tools that can help you bring interactivity to your online courses. Now, I talked about the same topic in my blog, and as you can see, I have my blog in front of us here. If you haven't been to it before, it's at people.son.rochester.edu/online learning. And I sort of talk about the pros and cons of each of these three modalities, and when to use them. Now, basically, the major point that I want to emphasize here is there are no technical reasons why you should choose one versus the other. You should choose them based on academic reasons. Essentially, you should choose the one that best meets the needs of your students and that best helps you as an instructor meet your learning objectives. So now I wanted to create this video so that I can actually sort of demonstrate the difference between the three different modalities. So let's start by talking about discussion boards. So here we have a course that I taught last summer, and this was a pathophysiology course, and I'm going to click over here on the class discussion board link, and I'm just going to pick a discussion board in the endocrine module here. And we have here a discussion that began with the topic question about diabetics. So let's click on that. Now you can see here there was an original post in which a student asked a question. I worked with a guy a few years ago who fell off a truck, hit his back, and due to complications became an insulin-dependent diabetic. Now, this presented a discussion question, and we got a few responses to it. The first person said, "I'm not sure if this could happen." The next person said, "No, there's no way. I've been taking care of diabetics my entire nursing career, and I've never heard of anyone getting diabetes from falling off of a truck." And then that person got a response that said, "Yes, it is possible. If you injure your pancreas, you could develop severe pancreatitis and you could lose your insulin producing capacity that way." And then that person received a response. So we're having a good back and forth here, a discussion that sort of follows a single thread. It starts off with the initial topic with the question about diabetes, and then we're sort of going down this side discussion about whether or not this is possible. Then this person responds to the other to John here. "I agree with John. I don't think it's possible. Do you have any literature to back this up?" And then John answers, "Yes, here's an article. According to the data, pancreatic insufficiency and diabetes can occur 22% of the time," and provides an article. So we had a nice little side discussion. It really was kind of a debate that went back and forth. And then after that sort of little side discussion, we have something that sort of relates back to the initial question. And just saying that this is an interesting fact. I've never really considered this before. It makes sense though, because my uncle had a Whipple procedure done and he needed insulin for the rest of his life. So that's sort of not responding to that debate about whether or not it's possible. It's responding to the initial question. So this is a good example of what a threaded discussion looks like. A threaded discussion is basically organizes the discussion into a hierarchy in which you have at the highest level the initial question or topic. Then on the second level, responses directly to that topic. And then you have third and fourth levels, which are responses to the responses. Now this is beneficial because as you can see, if there wasn't a hierarchy, it would really be difficult to tell that this was all responses to each other here. It would be really easy to lose who's responding to who and who's responding to what question. So this is really a nice way to have an informal discussion that's akin to a debate or a heated discussion or a lively discussion that you may be having in the classroom. But as you can see, the discussions are often pretty short and informal. They're not, lengthy, well thought out academic responses. Okay, so next I want to talk about blogs, and this is a blog that I used in a course that I'm teaching actually this summer. And the assignment that I gave is I asked students that to to write a formal paper that describes a patient scenario and then describes the pathophysiology that underlies the patient's condition. So here we have, and obviously this relates to the topic that we were discussing in the course at the time. So during the week in which we studied the renal system in our physiology and pathophysiology course, this student chose to focus on a patient that had diabetic nephropathy. So, she wrote a it's a short but formal paper that she put a lot of thought into it. So she first put some time into describing the patient scenario, and then she goes on to describe in some depth the pathophysiology and physiology that was going on with the patient. Um, and this is similar to a paper that in the old days I just have the students submit directly to me. But in this case, the other students can benefit from this because they can read over the scenario and be sort of exposed to a real life situation that demonstrates and provides an example of the physiology and pathophysiology that we teach. And it also provides a level of interaction in which the students can discuss this case and talk about its management. So here we have down below there is a section for comments. Now this blog is actually ongoing at this point in time, so we only have one student that has responded. But she wrote, "Thanks for the information. In addition to hypertension, chronic hyperglycemia can activate immunologic pathways that lead to renin-angiotensin aldosterone system activation." So she is writing a thoughtful response and sort of generating a new line of discussion for this. Now, it's difficult. If I wanted to respond to this student, if I want to respond to the initial post, it works very well. But if we start to have a lot of back and forth, because we don't have that hierarchical organization that we have in the discussion board, it can become very confusing very quickly. So I find that this works best when the main post here is the central focus and the comments are really sort of directed back to the main poster. So it's great for sort of peer feedback, some question and answer, but it's not very good for a debate or a classroom style discussion. Okay, now last but not least, I want to talk about wikis. Now wikis are unique because with discussion boards and blogs, each individual post is written by one student, and then the comments are written again by one student. But a wiki is a collaborative document. So here we have, I'm going to click here on a pulmonary embolism case study, and what this was is I asked a group of students to work together to answer to discuss the pathophysiology behind a case study. So this is actually written by a group of students that are working collaboratively together. Now notice that my edit mode is off. So I am seeing the same view that my students have, but there is an edit wiki content here. So let's read through what we have here. Now I'm going to scroll down to the physiology section where we discuss the physiology or pathophysiology, I should say, of thrombus formation, and it says that a healthy endothelium normally maintains an anti-clotting environment with thromboregulators such as nitric oxide and prostacyclin. And it says injury to blood vessels, reduced blood flow, and abnormalities in clotting factors, and abnormalities in the endothelium can disrupt this ability and trigger clot formation. Now, say I'm one of the students reading this, and I don't really like the wording of that. We're sort of in our final editing phase, so I want to go in and change a couple of things. So what I can do is just click this Edit Wiki Content button, and I'm going to now, I've got an edit window open, and I'm going to scroll down to the parts that I want to change. Now first I noticed that this says physiology and I want it to say pathophysiology. Let's see if I can spell that right. So I'm going to sort of highlight in red that that's the change that I made. And the students obviously aren't going to do this. I'm just doing this for the purpose of the video. And say I want to change a couple of things. I don't like the wording of reduced blood flow. I like the wording that is sort of more typically used when we talk about Virchow's triad. And I'm going to use the word venous stasis. Okay, and again I'm going to make that red, just so you know that it's me that's doing it. So now I'm going to, those are the only changes I want to make at this time, so I'm going to go in and you can see, there's my changes. Great. Now say another student comes along, one of the other members of the group, and say she wants to make some changes too. So I'm going to pretend I'm that student and I'm going to click on my edit wiki content. And there's a couple of things I don't like here. Really we think about Virchow's triad as being a triad. It's injury to the blood vessels, venous stasis, and hypercoagulability. And that's really it. That is the triad. So I don't want to bring up this messy stuff about abnormalities in the endothelium. So those are the changes that I made. And we'll make that in blue so you can see. So there you go. You can see the original text. You can see the changes that student number 1 made in red, and you can see the changes that student number 2 made in blue. Now, what's interesting is, with the wiki, say, so again, I just wanted to give you an example of how this is a collaborative document, and several different people, or a large group of people, can work together to create, to edit this document and make it the way that they want it to be. Now I'm going to give you an example of, actually the wiki works great as a sign-up form. So if you have a group of people in an online course and they need to sign up for a presentation or an assignment, or they need to sign up in groups, wikis are a great way to do that, because what you can do is create a sign-up form in here. And I want to show you something here, because someone went in and said this form was no longer needed.